Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nevada Irrigation District Candidate Forum, brought to you by the League of Women Voters from Nevada County. My name is Jan Bedane. I'm co-president of the League of Women Voters of Nevada County, along with Lynn Forbes. And we welcome everybody here tonight, those in the audience at the Root Center with us, those watching us live streaming, and those who might watch this a little bit later. I want to express my great thanks to the candidates of Nevada Irrigation District for being here tonight. The moderator, Jeff Pettit, is going to be introducing them, but really appreciate their time. Also, their willingness to serve our community. League of Women Voters is a political but nonpartisan organization, and we focus primarily on getting active civic engagement within our communities. We have an advocacy arm and an education arm. Our local chapter is primarily an education arm, and this is one of the things that we do, which is to provide an opportunity for you to listen to the candidates and for the candidates to bring their message to the community. There is a lot of information about the upcoming election that I would like to tell you about, but I'm not going to tell you about them because it's all on our website. And that is www.lwvnevadacounty.org. And if you go there, you really can find just about anything, any question you might have about the upcoming election. So please visit that. We've also got our recordings of previous forums. That would be Nevada County Board of Education, Nevada Joint Union High School District, and and our pro and con presentation that we did this week also. The pro and con presentation goes through every single one of the ballot measures and provides you with unbiased information about each one of them to help you understand. They're confusing, but we had two people who really dove in with the research and make it very easy to understand. You can also find that each individual ballot measure is described in its own video if you want to just look at one or two. So anyway, our website, that's the place to go. I would like to introduce Jeff Pettit. Jeff Pettit is our moderator for this evening, a longtime League of Women Voters member and former captain in our Sheriff's Department. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jan. Good evening, everybody. Tonight we are presenting the candidates vying for the office of Nevada Irrigation District Divisions 3 and 5. Division 3 candidates are Brad Fowler and Karen Hull. Division 3 covers an area from North Auburn up into South Nevada County, encompassing Lake of the Pines. We also have Rich Johansson, who's running for District 5, or Division 5, that covers Penn Valley and Rough and Ready areas. He's running unopposed for that position. NID's mission includes long-term infrastructure and water supply reliability, employee engagement, watershed stewardship and resiliency, financial sustainability, and technology and innovation investments. I want to go over some of the ground rules for tonight's event. Please remember that we maintain a neutral environment, meaning nothing candidate or issue related may be shown during the forum. And please refrain from outbursts and clapping until after the questions have been answered and the candidates have done their closing statements. I would also ask you to take a moment to put your cell phones on silence, because it's always fun to have one go off, and I'm sure hopefully it won't be mine. And the candidates will have 2 minutes apiece for opening and closing statements. And then we will move on to the question and answer portion, and each candidate will have 1.5 minutes apiece to answer questions. Each candidate has received 2 red rebuttal cards to be used to rebut something another candidate has said. Each rebuttal card allows 1 additional minute to that candidate only. Once a candidate has used both rebuttal cards, no more are allowed. Candidates will rotate in the order of answering questions, always moving from left to right. Our left or your left? From my left. I guess from your left. No. Got it. So your left. Before we began, we drew numbers to see who would go first. Mr. Fowler will will have the first opening statement, and then we'll move to Ms. Hull and then to Mr. Johansson. After that, the first question will go to candidate Hull. With that, it's now time to meet our candidates. Mr. Fowler, you have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you to, first I want to start off with thank you to the League of Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this and for having this. I've been looking forward to this discussion. And thanks to the people. There's better than a dozen people here, so that's very exciting. Some people are engaged in the NID race.
You have a loud voice, but not loud enough.
I've been, okay, thank you. I've been cautioned about that. So I'm running for the NID board because I want to bring a ratepayer's perspective to that agency. I've been engaged with the NID for over 15 years. I'm a rancher, I'm a veteran. I'm raising my family in a ranching lifestyle and mostly a livelihood, but sometimes it's more of a lifestyle than a livelihood. But I believe, and I've said this for a dozen years, I want water to be affordable, reliable, and plentiful. But the most important thing, the biggest difference, the biggest value that I think I bring to the board is a ratepayer's perspective, where my livelihood depends on NID water. And I think that's, my perception is that that might be lacking on the board currently, and that's the value that I would bring. Thank you.
Thank you. And I did forget to mention, we do have a timekeeper. She will hold up a 30-second timer and then a time's up if you are running over. And if the time comes up, if you finish your sentence, you don't have to stop mid-sentence, and then you can continue.
So our chairs don't disappear.
You don't just, we don't have to, we're not going to be turning off your mics mid-sentence, so you don't have to worry about that.
Okay. And could you please let me know if I am not close enough to this mic? That would be helpful.
Sounds good. And you're up. Thank you.
Okay. And many thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event, and for those of you who are here tonight participating in person and via Zoom. So when I was elected to the board in 2020, I made specific promises to the ratepayers. I said I would work to see that NID overhauled its broken financial management systems to provide much-needed accuracy and transparency. We accomplished this. I said I would work to keep water rates affordable. We accomplished this with no rate increases for 3 consecutive years. I said I would ensure that the district developed strong operating plans to lead us into the future. We accomplished this through the Plan for Water. In short, NID is in a much better position today than it was 4 years ago. And it's a good thing, too, because we need to be in order to tackle the serious challenges facing us in the future. Much of our infrastructure is over 50 years old. We need to plan for more water storage, and we must protect our water rights from state overreach. One question that is top of mind is which candidate has the right skills and aptitudes to manage these complex and expensive issues without driving your rates through the roof. I believe I am that candidate. I'm a businesswoman first and foremost. I'm a fiscal conservative who believes in making investments at the right time based on careful analysis of facts and options. I'm a former executive leader at UC Davis with an MBA and decades of experience managing large operations and complex finances. I managed a $33 million operating budget with 175 employees. By voting for me, you are selecting a skilled business professional who has what it takes to make sure you have reliable and affordable water for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Johansson.
Yeah, Jeff. Thank you to the League of Women Voters. My name is Rich Johansson, Director, Division 5. I am running unopposed, but I'm here tonight to answer questions. I think it's imperative that each one of the directors get out into the community, find out what people are thinking, answer the question. I also think that one of our priorities at NID that remains, I think Karen covered a bunch of things that we've done. We're much more financially strong right now. We're more transparent and working. We're more data-driven. The data drives the decisions that we make. One little footnote, in those 3 years, 22, 23, and now 24, where we didn't raise rates, We also do, because of the audit conducted last year, we increased our net cash position in 2023 by $16.8 million. That is no small feat. I think our one main goal right now, among others, is not only the infrastructure, but also to get out in the community what NID is, what we do, how we operate, some of the constraints. It was mentioned state overreach. We are constantly being required to do things by the state of California and the federal government that costs us a lot of money, costs our ratepayers a lot of money, and we're working solutions to those. It will be a challenge, but thank you for having us here, and we'll bring on the questions.
Thank you. Thank you, each of you. So we will move into our questions. These questions were submitted to the League. Our first question will go to candidate Hull. The question, obviously yesterday you guys had a board meeting. It was rather eventful. So we're going to jump right into some of the most burning questions, I think. This is in regard to the Centennial Dam. Let's start with the most common news from NID. Yesterday, a major decision was taken by the NID board to abandon the proposed Centennial Dam. In your view, was this the right decision and why? Candidate Hull.
Yes, I believe that it was the right decision. I also recognize that for many years, NID promoted that as being the primary solution to water storage in the future. And fortunately, through our plan for water process that we recently completed, we got a lot of new information about the facts of where our current water supply stands, as well as what our future needs are likely to be. And what we know from that process is that we have an adequate water supply for today. The challenge is, as we look at a changing weather pattern, where is the best place to augment storage within the district? And we had two primary options in terms of significantly augmenting storage, one being Centennial and one being Raising Rollins. The challenges I saw with Centennial are a couple. One is it's located in the divisions at a point where it only serves primarily Placer County. So Nevada County residents would be required to pay for that investment but get no benefit from it, basically. Another issue is just the sheer cost of it. That cost is borne completely by ratepayers, and it would cause, particularly for our agricultural community, rates to skyrocket. Rollins Reservoir, on the other hand, is half the cost and provides service to the entire NID service territory.
Thank you. Mr. Johansson.
Yeah, let's run the numbers. Centennial, our main mission at NID is to provide adequate, quality water at a most affordable price. Centennial, if built, would have cost a customer of 1 miner's inch over $2,000 a year extra for 30 years. 10 miner's inches over $20,000 a year. 100 miner's inches would have been over $200,000 a year to that ratepayer for 30 years. It was too expensive. Also, Centennial was taken out of context. When it was first proposed in 1926, when all the surveys were done, it also included a tunnel of 7,000 feet to another reservoir called South Wolf Creek, which would have been 200 feet high, 50,000 acre feet, and then a 4.5-mile canal into Penn Valley. That was the main goal of Centennial. It wasn't to feed water in south. That was the original. So when we extracted and it was proposed, 10 years ago with the water right 5634 to build Centennial, it just was in the wrong place. It did not help on distribution. It did not help on storage. And one of the big selling points was that Nevada County side would not have to ship 30, 40,000 acre feet of water every year over to the Bear River side, but the model said we still had to.
Thank you. And Mr. Fowler.
So Cynthia, I'm going to be the adverse one on this one. So I was very supportive of Centennial Dam. I am very supportive and looking forward to the advancement of the Rollins that the board passed, raising the dam at Rollins. I think that's spectacular. I can't think of any scenario where additional storage of water is disadvantageous to California. We talked about Placer County. Placer County is over 50% of the district. So getting water to Placer County actually is pretty important. So one of the things the board did yesterday that I disagreed with, or I thought perhaps is premature, is they gave up NIDs. We were first in line for a water right. And the board surrendered that water right so somebody else can come take it. And I was going to use an example. On the ranch, sometimes I'll have a little junk pile, right? And 30 seconds, I got to work this out. So I've got a little junk pile on the ranch, and sometimes I put stuff over there that I think, oh, I'll never have a need for that. And occasionally, I go over to that junk pile, and 10 years down the road, perhaps, there's this thing that I didn't think I had a need for because I didn't have a need for it today, but maybe in 10 years I do have a need for that, whatever, that axle bearing that I thought was junk. And I think it was a mistake to give up those rights, even if we were going to exercise them. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know,
Okay.
I think I will take my optional item here, because this is such an important issue, and I appreciate Brad's points. But the fact of the matter is, the cost of that project never changes, it only goes up. And when the cost of water goes from, it skyrockets, particularly for the ranching community and the agricultural community. And just simply put, NID can't fund that project. We can't get any bank to loan the money. So continuing the work on Centennial, it costs time and money that is not spent on other things. And I think we have an overabundance of critical needs in the district, which I'm sure we'll talk about, that require investment. And when we can get a 91% increase in our water storage through raising Rollins, I think the evidence shows that it provides for water for the entire district for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, next question. This has to do with aging infrastructure, which some of you touched on your opening statements. Water affordability and reliability are both critically important to NID customers. However, much of NID's infrastructure is over 50 years old. What should NID do to maintain or upgrade its existing infrastructure to ensure the reliability without making water unaffordable? And this question will start with Mr. Johansson.
So they're almost mutually exclusive, because this is a very expensive infrastructure that we're dealing with. And NID is if not the most complex and complicated irrigation district in America, it's right there with it. We have 475 miles of canals. We have to maintain them. We have hundreds of miles of treated water lines. We have to maintain them. We have water treatment plants. We have hydro. We have to maintain them. Our dams, we have 9 storage dams, 270,000 acre feet. We have to maintain them. We are faced that right now with Scotts Flat on the spillway. It's safe, but we have to upgrade it. How do you keep prices down? So we're initiating a system where, and this hasn't been done before, but so we have on treated water pipe, we're going to replace so much a year. Instead of going out and repairing a break, which is more costly, we're going to replace, a lot cheaper. And in time, we'll just keep like painting this Bay Bridge or the Golden Gate. You just keep from when. Once you factor that in, it's not cheap. But like we said, we haven't raised rates in 3 years. We have a staff that is managing directors that are incredible. They know how to save money.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler.
PG&E infrastructure, and some of the infrastructure that I think the most problematic infrastructure that we're looking at right now is the South Yuba Canal. It's vulnerable, it has problems, it's old. We purchased that, we as a district, all the people in this room purchased that from PG&E, and it's possible that that agency didn't put as much care into maintenance as they could have if they were planning to keep it. And so it's very vulnerable to fire, it's aged, it's going to be expensive, but I think what Rich said about replacing it bit by bit instead of a wholesale, I think that's our most vulnerable, and paying for it is going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hull.
Well, I will be a repeater here because I think what the statements that have been made are absolutely right on point. Reliability of water delivery is absolutely essential. I get calls during the summer in particular from customers who have blockages in the canals or there's not enough water in the system. And oftentimes an investigation shows that there are leaks and failures upstream that are causing that problem. And so we can't just sit back and handle this on a case-by-case basis. We have to systematically invest in our replacement of our infrastructure. And Brad is absolutely right. That South Yuba Canal, which serves the vast majority of Nevada County, is the highest risk piece of infrastructure we have, and we absolutely have to invest in it, and it is going to be very expensive. But we have to do it in a way that doesn't cause rates to skyrocket. And so that's the challenge of the board, really, is to make that balancing decision of keeping the water flowing reliably so that ranchers like Brad and others in the audience have that water that they're relying on at a rate that they can afford.
Thank you. Let's move on. You each mentioned PG&E, so let's move on. And we know that they've been in the news lately, as of late. PG&E's infrastructure failure significantly impacted our water supply this year. Partial flows have been restored, but there are still more repairs to be made. Where does that leave our district, and what do you recommend we do about it? And this will go to Mr. Fowler for first answer.
So excuse me. So we did have, and we're going to experience that again next year, it sounds like, based on what I heard at the board meeting yesterday, that PG&E is going to be continuing to repair their infrastructure, and we're going to have some outages. So what we do about that is we store as much water as we can so that these man-made outages don't affect us as drastically. So if we have stored water somewhere, and high country is obviously, right, we talked about the higher up we can put the water, the better off we are. I don't think there's any options to store water. I think we've used all the high country options. But the more water we have in reserve so that when these equipment failures happen, we have a backup supply.
Thank you, Ms. Hull.
Well, obviously, this has been a very stressful situation for our community and for water users throughout the system. And in particular, it's been stressful for NID management and staff. And I do want to recognize that part of why we got the repairs made in the time and manner we did is because NID management and the board held PG&E management and staff, that we held their feet to the fire at every single meeting, and there were multiple meetings during the week that NID management put tremendous pressure, and we brought political pressure in to bear on PG&E, and we got that system functioning again, at least partially. And Brad is right that it's going to be into next year until we get it fully repaired. But we did a combination of, we did conservation, we ran the canals very tightly. As Brad said, the key to next year is really making sure we're storing as much water as we can in the system this fall and over the winter, and to carefully monitor strategies for releases next year.
Thank you. And Mr. Johansson.
Our staff and management they performed miracles this year. That system was stressed, and they were too, but they came through. Now, the key for next year will be Scotts Flat Reservoir. Can we fill it? And that's the big. So South Yuba Canal has suddenly become priority number one. That's one reason why Centennial we had to move forward, because South Yuba Canal is, if it goes, we have a problem with it. There is no water coming into Scotts Flat Lake. And that cuts the water off to Nevada City, Grass Valley, Lake of the, everybody on this site. So it's priority number one. Why did we take it over? Because PG&E was going to get rid of it. And it was either us or some financial group off of Wall Street that would have just hiked the carriage rates. And so we decided, hey, we have to take care of it. We'll take care of it better than they are. Storage. So I have started an initiative of micro ponds. So I want to see a micro pond, an irrigation pond on every ranch and farm in Nevada and Placer County. We have one on our farm. You can't believe the benefits. It checks every box. We're growing all the way through the winter. We didn't really stress during the outages by PG&E because we had that storage area. We had a buffer. I want to go more micro ponds, maybe than big projects.
Thank you. And just a reminder to our audience, if you have a question, raise your hand. We'll get you a card. You can write your question down, and then we'll make sure that we try to get that question answered as well tonight. The next question that was submitted is regarding affordability. This question will be for Ms. Hull first. How will you address the need for affordable water for agricultural users?
Well, obviously, agriculture serves as a very important piece of the fabric of our community, really. From having fresh food at our markets, our farmers' markets, to creating really the whole environment of our Placer and Nevada counties. You see the animals and the ranches, and it adds a richness and vitality to our community. So affordability of water is critical. At the same time, reliability is also important. So we can't neglect reliability for the sake of affordability. I also have to say that I believe that affordability for every ratepayer is essential. When I campaigned in 2020, I canvassed Alta Sierra, which was part of my territory at that time, and I went to many households where there were 3 generations of families living in the same household, and they talked about the impact of water costs to their ability to thrive as a family. So this issue of affordability absolutely is essential, and I think particularly for our ranching community, where water makes up such a significant portion of the cost. But it's important to everyone, and that is my focus, is every ratepayer.
Thank you. Mr. Johansson.
So this is a challenge. In the valley, water flows right to money. You see family farms. I think we've lost 150,000 family farms in America in the last few years. You see consolidation. You see bigger operations. You see people coming in, dropping deeper wells, taking out the family farm. Up here in Nevada County, we have a chance to buck that trend. We have a lot of family farms. It's a community out there. And our goal and idea is to provide the most affordable water we can, because our model up here is quite different. It's just so much more. It checks all the boxes. Wildlife habitat, it's everywhere. All right? Fire protection. You see an irrigated pasture or green zone. It's fire protection. You see a pond, fire protection. All right? And food security, because we're growing it here. San Joaquin Valley has lost 500,000 acres of farmland. It's going to lose another 500,000, if not more. We're in a unique situation to create. We have created, but maintain it and create even a more just incredible situation with our ag, our ranchers and farmers here. And it doesn't happen without water, and it doesn't happen without affordable water.
Thank you. And Mr. Fowler.
Water affordability. This is my favorite topic, actually. So I'm glad that I was last and I got a chance to brainstorm on it a little bit. So a little bit of history. When we, as a community, bonded the Yuba Bear project in the 60s, the reason we did that wasn't because the NID wanted to be in the hydro generation. We did that so that we could subsidize our water rates. We were a water delivery agency, and we got into the electric generation business so that we could subsidize water rates. And it was successful in that for 50 years. And now we're having to update some infrastructure, and we're experiencing some additional costs that we've all talked about. What we need to do is look at additional revenue streams. So additional hydro, there is a model in California where many water agencies are also in the electrical distribution business. And people get scared. It's kind of a radical idea. We think it's a radical idea because we pay PG&E, and we have forever. But in many parts of California, the irrigation district is also the distributor of the electricity that they generate. And I think that's an opportunity for an additional revenue stream that would increase affordability for all of the ratepayers in the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mr. Johansson.
I'd like to point out that hydro currently subsidizes agriculture because they pay for all the upper division costs. That's about $10 million. And raw water users get 94% of that. When there's money left over, it goes to all ratepayers. Now, I will say, previous administration looked at distribution and hydro because we make enough electricity for 60,000 homes in our hydro units. But Snowmageddon 1 and 2 probably would have bankrupted the district. That was so expensive. We're not in the valley. We have high winds. We don't have the density up here. We have long stretches of wire with no homes. And any of those, I mean, look what PG&E's paying right now just to put crews out roaming, looking for problems, because there's an outage every day. And this district is not set up to do that. NID is not set up to do that, nor can we afford that, or do we have the personnel that is trained to do it.
Thank you. Okay, our next question comes from a young voter. They say they're concerned about environmental and climate change. I am curious to know what your plans and ideas are about making sure our water system is resilient while having the least environmental impact. And do you prioritize new water storage or efficiency and conservation? And we will start with Mr. Johansson.
All right. So our plan for water process, including modeling exercise, and we modeled for climate change. So we have the best modeling and science in the state, even better than the state of California. It shows that the snowpack, which used to be 110,000 acre feet and melted in March or June, July, now will be 55,000 acre feet and will melt a lot sooner. We will have more rain events, more atmospheric record, and we do have a little time here to make some changes. But climate change is real, and I'm an opponent. We need more storage. We just need to figure out where to put that storage, how to afford it, and where is it going to do the most good for us? And that's what the Plan for Water really helped us do. When the state comes to us, like they did past year, and proposed that they want 55% of our water flowing through our watershed, and said that the Scotts Flat Lake would not even be affected, there's no impact. Well, we modeled that and showed there's tremendous impact, that we would run out of water in quite a few years. And so I think first we got the modeling, so now we can get the data. The data, we can now make decisions to counter the climate change.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler.
So the question was if I would prioritize, or we would prioritize, storage over efficiency and conservation. And I don't think I don't think we have to choose between those. I think we can, so I am in favor of additional storage and new water storage, absolutely. We pursue efficiencies as best as we can afford them. And as far as conservation, really, I believe that most conservation is a take. Most mandated conservation, especially if the state or another agency is mandating a conservation, I don't think that's water that we're going to get back. I think that's a state take on it. Efficiencies, yeah, there are things, and those are all explored in the plan for water. They talked about piping the canals, and there's all these great ideas that we can do, and every one of them costs money, so we have to balance that. And storage is going to cost money too. I don't know if we have to choose between storage and efficiency. I think let's move towards both of those. Everybody that I know that buys water is doing the best they can with what they have, and I think as an agency, we can continue to do that.
Thank you. Mrs. Hull.
I agree that it's not an either-or choice, that we have to approach this using every tool in the toolbox. This is a complex issue. It's a big problem to solve. And so Rich previously mentioned microponds. So this is an option to create on-site storage where you can use water more flexibly. You actually use less water because it's flowing in the pond 24/7 for the irrigation season, and then you pull it out as you need it. And so that's a genius way to create, lower your water use while also providing everything you need. Another technology that we're implementing are gauging stations at the tail end of the canals so that we are electronically monitoring the water levels to make sure that our customers are getting water throughout the system, and that we're monitoring that at headquarters, not by staff running up and down canals. So that's another example. I am absolutely a proponent of storage. That has to be part of our plans. I think Rollins makes a whole lot of sense to raise it 50,000 acre feet, 91% increase in storage capacity. That is a lot of additional water to help our community.
Thank you. As a prospective NID board member, are you concerned about the use of chemical herbicides such as Roundup and copper-based aquatic herbicides such as, and I'll try to pronounce these properly, Cutrine and Nautique? Does anybody want to? Okay, I guess that's right. In NID dishes. What is your understanding of the effects of these toxins on livestock and wildlife? And would you consider phasing any of these out? And we will begin with Mr. Fowler.
Hey, that's great. Herbicides. I was waiting for this one to come up. So that's funny. So one of the businesses that I'm engaged in is we've used sheep and goats for vegetation management for 16, 17 years. And we've actually contracted with the agency and with PCWA and PG&E. And so I'm an advocate of livestock as a veg management program. I don't know how we would do that in the canals, but on our ranch, herbicides are a tool that's in the toolbox, and my wife and I have great disagreement over this because there are times when I believe that herbicides can be the correct tool, and there's spots where I use herbicides, and in her world we wouldn't use any, and we would figure out alternative. Sometimes the herbicides are the cheapest, fastest way to do it. Like we can, for example, in our irrigation ditches on the ranch, I can clean them out with a tractor, which costs me time, money, it's fuel, and I can do that. Or I can do maybe 2 miles a ditch with a tractor in a day. But if I'm spraying ditches, I can clean those ditches. I can spray 5 or 6 miles in a day, and we have 5 or 6 miles of ditches. So if I can get that done in a day, and then the rest of the days I can go on and do something else, that's a tool that I want to keep in the toolbox.
Thank you. Ms. Hull.
You know, this is a really difficult question. I think Brad presented the complexity of it well. The district has done some studies historically that looked at alternative ways to approach this. because it is an issue of cost versus, time, really. And so you have the cost, and the cost is much higher when it's done with labor and non-chemical approaches. At the same time, we hear regularly from our customers about the negative impacts of herbicides in our environment. And so the district is making efforts to reduce the amount of herbicides they apply. We do provide notice to customers whenever we're applying herbicides. I do think that it is an important, until we find another solution, we will be hard pressed to keep our water flowing without using some level of chemical application. It's because really if you want the water flowing, you can't have it clogged up with weeds. And that's just a fact. And with 500 miles of canals, it's hard to manage this level of an issue without some chemical support, unfortunately.
Thank you. Mr. Johansson.
So I am a certified organic farmer, have been for quite a while, decades and decades. And I was on that study committee 10 years ago where we were looking at alternatives. We used steamers, mowers, whatever. Everyone had a cost factor that was greater than glyphosate or whatever, or the coppers. When that is being put into the system, we close our gates. We don't fill the pond. But I would be, personally, I've made this offer to our legal counsel, I'll clean my ditch. I'll go out and hire people to do whatever, and then come in, inspect it, and make sure it's done correctly, and as long as I don't have to sign an indemnification. I'm not going to sign that act of God, and I have to pay for it. So I'm willing to take personal responsibility in my own ditch. The problem is we just couldn't find any system that would then provide affordable water to the ratepayer. Having said, we have reduced it, and I think from what I see in the ditches in my area, some areas aren't getting sprayed every year, which is a good thing. And it's going to come up. It's going to come up probably rather soon. It's an issue, and we have to deal with it.
Thank you. Let's move on to finances. This person is asking, NID finances are a big topic of concern. What is your assessment of NID's current financial state, and what financial issues do you anticipate in the coming years? And this will go to Ms. Hull first.
Clearly, having accurate, timely financial information is the lifeblood of an organization like NID. And over the past 4 years, we've done really remarkable work in addressing financial issues at the district. When I came on board, I had a lot of concerns, and it took a lot of management and staff time, heavy lifting of changing account structures, moving investment portfolios, cleaning up our audits. So today we have a much improved financial controls at the district. And the credit for that, really, I think the board was obviously very supportive of those efforts, but it was NID management and staff who made that happen. We've got strong reserves today, so we have the ability to make investments in our infrastructure. We have kept rates flat. And we did that by taking a step back and really doing an analysis of what are our needs. We have reduced our staff positions, 20 positions in 4 years, between the 2020 budget, actually, and the 2025 budget. 20 positions. And this is at a time when our organization is becoming more complex and difficult to manage. So we are in a very strong financial position, and I feel confident that the board has the information to make timely, accurate decisions.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest accomplishments in the last 4 years. Our financial situation 4 years ago was horrible. And now we have about $103 million in reserves. We have about $32 million in operating capital. It is all due to good management and allocation of resources and productivity. People are working better, harder, they're happier. It's amazing to see. And as far as accounting, we had our audit done by June this past year with only one correction. I think it was a $12 correction out of almost a $100 million budget. That is amazing. And the auditor just came walking away because 4 years ago, there was over 100 red flags. And our financial investments were skewed one way that was not beneficial to us. Now they're getting balanced. And so we're in a much stronger financial situation while still at the same, because we have to be, because we're recognizing what's coming to us. FERC relicensing, spillways, just what, a lot of rewinds on the hydro units. You know, they're 60 years old, they're time to be done. But we're planning for that. And good planning can make the pain a lot less.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler.
So, actually, Director Hull, and she doesn't give herself enough credit. So she was actually the board of directors and staff, but the board of directors really dove into those finances and were vested in that process. And they did all of us a great service in kind of righting a ship that maybe perhaps had some difficulties. And the board of directors were actually very involved in that. And we should all be very thankful for the work that they did in that. I really appreciate that staff is running that organization pretty lean. I didn't say earlier, so I'm a rancher, but I'm involved in other businesses also. And lean is definitive of how we operate on most of our stuff, especially in the ranching enterprise. And so I appreciate that we can do more with less, and staff is really motivated to do more with less. And there's terrific people at the agency that are doing the work, and they're figuring out how to do the job with what they have. And I think that's really to your guys' credit. I thank you for, if I haven't said thank you, I've been paying attention, and we really do appreciate it. So thank you.
We love you too, Brad.
Thank you. Okay, so we've talked about maintaining the current system, replacing the aging parts of that system, and building more water storage. All this is much greater than what NID's available financial situations are right now to do all of that. So how would you prioritize these investments and why? And Mr. Johansson, you get to go first.
Okay, number one, South Yuba Canal, critical. We got to find a solution because that's the lifeblood for all the water here. Number two, figuring out on the edge, buying PG&E water. We have a nice contract agreement with them to buy water at $52 an acre foot. We're going to be buying the max every year. That's cheap water. Cheaper than building storage. And then we got into it earlier. We're going to start replacing treated water lines. We're putting smart meters in each home. You can't believe how many people get a phone call from our headquarters saying, hey, you got a leak somewhere. I know one guy in Lake Wildwood saved his house from mold and everything else. He was able to go find it and took care of it. So we're investing, the canal's encasement would cost almost $3 billion. So we're kind of stuck with those canals, but I like them. The habitat is out there, they're using it, they're just, it's vibrant. You go by and you see that water flowing. So I'm just saying, let's keep maintaining them. I like to see each landowner take a little more control over their particular canal. Not everybody can, like Brad or myself, but so South Yuba Canal, storage.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler.
So prioritizing investments. And this is funny because we all were actually in agreement on a ton of stuff, right? And I think that's spectacular. But Rich nailed it. This is our most vulnerable infrastructure is what we need to prioritize on. And that was evidenced this winter when the PG&E Canal, it wasn't our canal, but a chunk of the PG&E Canal fell off the mountain. And if you haven't been up to Bowman Road and look at it, there's a rock slide that started probably a half a mile up there. And if you look at the rock, you think, oh, I could see why that would fall off the mountain. So we have a lot of vulnerable infrastructure. That's not ours, but thankfully they're paying for the repair, and we'll negotiate how all that works out.
Right.
But this vulnerable infrastructure is where we need to, that's where we need to spend the money right now, so that if that flume all fails, that we don't lose water in all of western Nevada County. Then that would be my number one, and then storage would be a short second. Close second, rather. Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you.
So, being a repeater, I would say that the South Yuba Canal is definitely the top of the list, and I'm glad that we all see that. To me, the residents of Nevada County should fire the board if we don't make the investment required. Not to say that we couldn't have a problem with that canal, but we have to demonstrate that we're making a systematic investment in that canal and that we have a strategy for dealing with that vulnerability. I also believe we have 400 miles of treated water pipeline and 90 miles of raw water pipeline that is 50 to 60 plus years old. And we see, as board members, we see the effect of, oh, gee, why is water flowing down that hillside? And we investigate, and NID staff go up the hillside, and what do they find but sprouting pipes everywhere? And so that kind of thing, we're much better off systematically replacing pipelines than letting them fail. The third thing, I think we have to set in place the plans for raising Rawlins, that we can't just wait until we say, oh, we need it. We have to have the plans in place, the water permits, the licensing, get the CEQA going, et cetera, so that we can act on that fast. And then we have FERC relicensing. We don't have an option on that. We have to fund it, and that's quite expensive.
Thank you. So I think Mr. Johansson mentioned this at his opening statement, but the State Water Board is threatening to force NID to pass up to 55% of its water downstream, which would devastate our water supply. As a board member, how would you approach the negotiation with the state? And Mr. Fowler, you get to field this one first.
Mr. Fowler is the wrong one to answer this question. So Mr. Fowler is not fond of state overreach. And my initial reaction is the incorrect one. So the right one is to perfect the water rights that we have and to aggressively fight them. What we need to do is get together with other water agencies that are experiencing the same difficulties and band together and sue the suckers. We need to fight the state because I said before that conservation is a take. The biggest risk is that the state ships our water and we don't have a say in it. If we as a community do not have a say in what happens to our water, our ability to live in these foothills goes away. And so the more unified, the bigger the association of, the larger consensus of affected water districts and people, the communities that are affected by this, the more of us that can get together and tell the state, no, that's what it's going to take. And that's probably the better than the, my initial was the pitchforks and flaming brands. But that was, yeah. Anyway, and that's what I got for that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So obviously, this is an issue of huge concern for NID's board and management. We simply cannot allow the state of California to dictate how we use our water. The context for this is the Bay Delta Plan being updated by the State Water Resources Control Board. And because we had completed the plan for water process, which showed the devastating impact that this proposal would have on our water district, as well as and one could project it's going to have the same kind of impact to like water districts in the foothills throughout the state, we are able to fight back with facts and logic. And I would just point out the state hadn't bothered to do a climate assessment to understand the impact of this proposal to the residents that they would apply this to. So as a board member, I don't negotiate this issue. This is an issue that is negotiated by our legal counsel and our general manager. And they are in an excellent position with the advocacy and support of the board to be able to fight back. And luckily, we have a proposal in the queue which is getting good traction with the state and has a good likelihood of being adopted.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. State overreach, time to push back. And how do you do that? Well, you do it with better science. You do it with back channels communication, like Karen alluded to, a voluntary agreement where we know what we can give up and not harm our environment, our watershed, our people, and the state would get them to get to that position. And we're having some success there. But the state comes in and they focus myopically on the delta. They don't care what happens up here. They really don't. And it's sad that they don't see the big picture, that we're the source of water for most of the state of California and the foothills and the Sierra Nevadas. But we've got to bring that fight to them. And trust me, I think it is a fight, because we've been in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. We're going to the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. We petitioned the Supreme Court of the United States. We're doing a lot of stuff that you don't really hear about to protect our watershed, our people, and we'll do our fair share with the state of California, but just don't go over, don't overreach and take more than our fair share.
Thank you. Every year we hear about wildfires that are increasing in frequency and size in the state of California and throughout the West, really. What is NID's role, if any, in addressing this issue? And this will be Mrs. Hole.
So obviously, this is a big concern to everyone in our community, and we've seen the devastation that wildfire brings. But keep in mind, too, that NID only owns 10,000 acres out of our 280,000 acres of service territory. So this is really a partnership between NID and property owners, and we do take responsibility for a number of important things that help to mitigate wildfire in our area. So in our hydroelectric area, we annually clear brush and trees around our high-tension power transmission lines, and that reduces, of course, the fire risk. Another thing we do is at Scotts Flat and Rollins Reservoirs, we have done forest thinning projects. Much of that's been funded through grants, so we work actively as a district to get grants wherever we can. We also extend water lines throughout the district, and we have, as a matter of business practice, install fire hydrants whenever we do those extensions. And then we've talked about the way property owners are using micro ponds, stock ponds, to create water storage on site. And the other thing we do is we have an NID tank rebate program where we help to underwrite the cost of water storage tanks to create additional fire safety on properties.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there's a fire in a certain area, we increase the water flow into that canal. So the fire. We've had two cases, one case on the tar ditch where a fire truck showed up early in the morning. It was a lightning strike up on Pilot Peak, and they were able to pump out of the ditch and put the fire out. My micropond helped put out a neighbor's fire. we need to put water where the fire is going to happen. And we do that with our canals. One proposal that I've had is that, and we do brush off our canals. We try to open up. But we could make a little more of a fire break around our canals, and that would be quite nice. These fire hydrants, we are not obligated or legally supposed to put them in, but we do because it's the right thing to do for the community. And everybody's heard it, but I want to have a backbone extension program where we put a line from Elizabeth George Water Treatment Plant into Lake Wildwood through Rough and Ready with a hydrant every 1,000 feet. That is a high fire area. Right now, it's gone up to $30 million for the project. So it's a case of money. Where do you put the priority? And so I just kind of say microponds, and backbone extension program.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler.
So this is great. So the hydrants, the community benefits from the hydrants, and NID doesn't get compensated, and I appreciate that, but I understand that. I don't. So the hydrants are super beneficial. The biggest benefit, and it's not NID's responsibility in this, but NID provides us with irrigated lands, which is actually our best fire deterrent, and the microponds. Rich gets disappointed if I don't say anything about storage. It's so cool to watch a helicopter dipping out of your neighbor's pond. A little scary, right? But knowing that water source is there, that's district water that they're using to put out a fire in your neighborhood is a great sense of relief when that helicopter is able to do that. But irrigated lands, if anybody lived here for a little while, you remember the river fire, and it stopped when it hit irrigated lands in Chicago Park. That was ag ground that it hit, and that's when that fire laid down. And it was ripping. Anybody watch it, it was ripping. So the water that we apply to the landscape is actually the best fire deterrent that's out there, and we're growing food with it largely. And so I think that's the best answer is let's irrigate more ground.
Can we say amen to that one?
You can say amen.
All right. Moving on. This is regarding equity among users. NID delivers both treated and raw water in Nevada and Placer County and serves residential farming and ranching customers. Do you believe all NID customers are treated equitably? And if not, do you have a proposal to make it equitable? What is your plan for serving everyone equitably? And we will begin with Mr. Johansson.
Describe it. Describe equitable.
I think that what they're looking at equitable is between residential, as they say, residential farming and ranching customers. Making sure everybody has equal
I'm
access.
still not getting the point. So equity does mean everybody gets the same amount of water, everybody pays the same. It needs to be a lot more specific.
Fairness.
Pardon me?
Fair.
Okay. Describe it, Peter. I mean, we will charge everybody the same amount of water. The charges aren't any change. We'll get water wherever we can. What else? I mean,
Do you feel it's equitable now, what the NID's practices?
I mean, it's a very obscure, politically charged word that, for me, has no basis of what do you really want? Mm-hmm. Do you want everybody to have the same amount of water? Do you want everybody to get it free? Do you want everybody, what?
I think we all want everybody to get it free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And we do our best. We keep our costs down. We supply water. This is a very expensive district, and
Fair enough.
Fair.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler.
Boy, Mr. Fowler is so glad that Rich got that one instead of me for the first, because I was able to noodle through it, but I was right there with you. Excuse me. I don't know that it's equitable among users. I don't know that it will ever be equitable among users. There's all these different things that affect us. I was thinking about this the other day, and we'll hear this a lot about the Prop 218 rate structure, that everybody has to be billed fairly, is what the gentleman said, or or equitably. But with PG&E, who's our electric service provider, everybody knows who that is, they have a rate structure that, depending on what business you're in and how many kilowatt hours you use, there's all these different rates. And so there are ways to figure out, and maybe it's not fair. I don't know anything in life that actually is fair. But there are ways to structure, so that different people can pay different rates or different companies can pay different rates. So as far as equity, I don't know. We're never going to achieve total equity or total equality on anything. So.
Thank you.
Okay, excuse me there.
Whenever you're ready.
All right, my interpretation of this question and answer is that NID loves all customers equally. We don't differentiate our service or the quality in any way based on what type of customer you are. And we try to help all customers be efficient and effective with their water, but we don't make a judgment on how people use their water. That's really the freedom of the buyer. I think I would just, since I don't have anything more to add specifically on that, I'd just dovetail into some water facts, which is 94% of our delivered water goes to raw water customers. And I think that's important to note because that heritage of being an irrigation district remains very strong in NID. And so 6% of our water is used by treated water customers. But all the expenses associated with the raw water system are borne by only raw water customers. And the costs associated with treated water customers are only affiliated with the treated water bills. So as a customer, you can have confidence that you're not paying for raw water, you're not paying for treated water, and I'm not paying for treated water, and you're not paying for treated water. So anyway, I think those are important for people to know, that the district does keep these costs separate and, in that sense, equitable.
Thank you.
I'd like to use my red card.
Absolutely.
I'm going to speak for Rich and myself. We both wish that we said what Karen said because she really put that together really well. So.
Fair enough.
That's it.
Cut it in half. It was only 30 seconds.
So our next question, I think we've covered regarding the priorities of the board, but I would like to ask a question regarding this next term. And for each of you, what are your priorities for this next term to get accomplished within this next term? And this question will go to Mr. Fowler.
So that's interesting. So we already asked about prioritizing investments, and I think so. I've got a couple different things. So replace or update vulnerable infrastructure would be my number one. Number two is keep water affordable, pursue additional revenue streams. And that's something that we can do concurrently, right? And so we're going to look for any additional revenue streams that make sense that can help keep the water rates low. And then number three, and this is also, all these can be done concurrently, but number three would be, now that we're moving forward on the Raising Rollins, let's move forward on Raising Rollins. Let's not do another study. Let's start the process of storing water so that it's available when we need it, because we're going to need it sooner than later. So let's actually do something, and less consultants and more work.
Thank you. Ms. Hull.
Again, I think that I kind of have a vision for what should take place in these next 4 years that will help advance the district in very critical ways and address some of the challenges that face us. So obviously, fortifying the infrastructure is one of the things we've talked about. We need to keep the reliability of our water delivery functioning at 100%, or as close to it as we can. I think one of the things we haven't talked about is investing in the administrative infrastructure. A lot of NID's operating systems are very antiquated. As an example, they use time cards instead of having an online timekeeping system. This is really not a good thing for a company with 200 employees. And so we need to drive efficiency and effectiveness into the organization, and we need to make corresponding investments in that. And we need to simultaneously invest in operational efficiencies that can save staff time and reduce water waste. And then, one of the other things that I hope we take time to do, we have blossomed as a district so much over these past years, and we need to share that with other water districts. We need to help others learn from the lessons we've learned.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to ditto all that. Productivity, we're solid on our mission statement, deliver quality water at a reliable price, affordable price. We weren't 4 years ago. Financial, continue keeping financially strong. I think that one thing that we do, besides everything that just Karen said, we need to get our story out. We need to let people know who NID is. There's still a question about, what do you guys do? Well, we deliver water, but how do you, we have such a story, a history, that it's compelling. A couple goes up to the high country and said, wow, Mr. Church said, why don't we just move the water down into Nevada County? And that's the start. I mean, it's just these ideas. We have such a history. We have such a great organization. We need to get that story out and have people ask questions like today, and so they become more comfortable with what we're doing. We're transparent. We're available. Come and talk to us. My home phone is 432-4344. Keep the landline, right? But it's critical that we have so many positive things we're doing. We need to let people know that we're doing it. And then it just builds from that, because we got a lot of pride in our organization and the people who run it.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one last question. This is in regard to metering. First question will go to Ms. Hull, or this question will go to Ms. Hull. Do you think that brass metering devices will be at all practical compared to miner's inch opening in ditch water boxes? Why or why not?
Well, I don't know much about brass metering systems, but I will say that I think that at some point in time, there will be technology that will allow us to provide more accurate control of water flows through the service boxes that we have throughout the district. I will comment, though, that the district manages our water very closely. So although we don't have that technology installed, we do have a staff that is continuously looking at how much water is going out the tail of the system, how much needs to be put in to keep customers' water flow at an appropriate level, and what water to pull, how to cut down on water. And the staff are so adept at making these changes that I'm sure the technology would be an addition and cut down on staff time potentially, but we're doing a lot of that work now. We just do it with the skills of our wonderful staff.
We don't supply the amount of water that's purchased. We supply the amount of water that's being used. And talk about when the there's a canal, water goes out of it. It is supporting one of the 4 known black rail, communities in the foothills. That's an threatened species. So our water is being used very efficiently. I don't think our system's set up for metering. State would love to meter everybody, how many steps you make and whatever. But they're going to come and probably they're looking at metering the wells, already looking at that. In some parts of the state they're doing it. But with an open ditch thing, and even if we could encase our whole system to pressurize it. So you could have meters. Engineeringly, our system may not be encaseable. We can do parts where it's leaking or we have problems, but for the whole system, it's just not set up for an engineer because just so many ups and downs. So no, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. Although the state would love to have us. And you got to remember, these guys don't live in a rural area. They're down in Sacramento, and I think maybe whatever they're thinking, or they don't quite have the picture of what's going on here. And once they do, maybe they'll understand more.
Thank you. And Mr. Fowler.
So metering raw water. No, I don't think brass meters are ever going to be a thing in the NID, just because of pressure and flow requirements and whatever. They're great on treated water systems, but on the raw water, what we have is an antiquated system that works, and we have staff that knows how to work that system. So the miner's inch is under 6 inches of head, and so if you call them and say, I don't have enough head on my board, that guy can go out there, or gal, it can go, whoever it is, whoever your ditch tender, your water distribution operator, they have antiquated techniques to figure out that problem, and they can get in the ditch and they can check up that ditch with some rocks to get you the head you need to get your water delivery. Our staff is so responsive. It's very rare that I have to call the ditch tender, and if I do have to call because of a problem that I can't resolve on my own, it's resolved that day. They're out there, they fix it, and they make it right. So we do have, it's an antiquated system, but it still works. And until something better comes along, I don't see a reason to spend a ton of money on a system that works.
Yeah. Was that the last question of the night?
That is the last question. Absolutely.
So So I had a phone call from a neighbor friend who said, hey, I only have 5 inches of head on my canal, and it's not working very well. I can't get across the pasture. The ditch tender was out within 30 minutes and searching up and down, where's the water? Where are we? Is it a leak? Somebody taking too much water, whatever. And that was resolved. So our guys really know how to work this system. And it may, somebody in Sacramento may think it's not efficient, but it is. It actually is very efficient. It's supporting so much wildlife habitat. And as Brad was saying, it's the food production, the green belts, the zones, fire protection. It's amazing. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the whole staff and management.
Thank you. Absolutely. Go ahead.
I forgot to mention one really important point, which is the sediment buildup that's occurring at Rollins Reservoir. This is an issue that we hadn't talked about as an investment part of that needs to be addressed. If we build more storage at Rollins, but we don't stop sediment from coming in, we will end up with the situation like we are in today, where we have lost 18% of our storage. So I just want to put that in because I forgot to mention that. The other thing is just the shout out to the NID management and staff. They have done a tremendous job in addressing so many issues, and they're so committed to our mission. I don't think you could find a more committed staff, a more well-trained, intelligent, hardworking group. And our management team, they are simply rock stars.
Thank you. All right. We will now begin to hear our closing statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to give their closing statement, and we will go in reverse order from the opening statements. So we will begin with Mr. Johansson.
Thank you, Jeff. Hey, thank you for having us there. I just want to get more information out about NID, and I think Karen and Brad did an beautiful job tonight of detailing what's going on and how they each think. So I just want to say, thank you. Participate, vote, and get on it. And the sedimentation thing, I'm reading a report today. I've been reading it for a couple of weeks now, about Rollins. And in the report from 1926 said if we put the reservoir at Rollins, it's going to form sedimentation. They knew it back then. But having said that, and we're called this past week a local business owner who is in the gravel business, and they have ideas about how to divert and so we can prevent more sedimentation to going into Rollins, because that is a critical point in raising Rollins. And Rollins, it's a 1921 water right. It is superior to the 1927 state filing that Centennial had. So, and we have more room. So, and in that, the state can't take any more water from us. We exercise the public benefit out of that excess water. That is the beautiful part about Rollins, is that, you know, if we raise it, it'll be cheaper to do, and it'll be very effective. So anyway, thank you for everything. It's for me, it's been an honor for serving NID and everybody the last 4 years, and I'm looking forward to the next 4. And you know, just remember, micro ponds. Congressman Kiley has seen the video. Go nidwater.com, go over to info and stuff, down to YouTube. You can see 4.5 minutes of what a micro pond will do. It's amazing. So talking to the congressman, and it seems like everybody is supportive of that idea, and RCD, Brianna Bacon, is heading it up, and all right.
Thank you. Ms. Hull.
Well, thank you again to the League of Women Voters and for all of you sitting here tonight in the audience. I also want to thank Brad and Rich for a real fun and engaging evening. I rarely call a debate fun, but this was kind of fun.
Good.
So I think one of the things that's sometimes hard to understand is the level of complexity that exists in NID. And, you know, over the last 4 years, and prior to joining the board, I actually studied a lot of the documents. I attended the board meetings, and I have definitely come to appreciate the difficulty that management has and staff in dealing with all the priorities. And so I think that as we look into the future, these next 4 years, what's really critical is having focus. You know, we can't do all things for all people at all times. And so having focus is really key. Because the issues that the board and management have to deal with are extremely time-consuming and difficult. So from my point of view, my commitment to you is to prioritize these updates to the infrastructure to ensure that we have reliable water. We don't want to see another PG&E debacle happening on our watch. We want to make sure that we're doing all the planning necessary for water storage so that we don't end up in a situation where we are short of water. We need to fight back against the state vigorously and protect our water rights. And then lastly, my number one job is to keep water affordable and reliable for years to come.
Thank you. Mr. Fowler.
So I want to thank both of you. I was halfway afraid when I got here that this is going to devolve into a fist fight. So I'm glad
It's not too late.
I'm glad we were able to stay civil throughout this entire thing. And thank you to all the people that showed up. And there's more than a dozen when we started, so we've increased our crowd. So thank you to the League of Women Voters, and I'm sure there's people watching it online or will watch it tomorrow or whatever. But the storage is, I think that's important. I think the vulnerable infrastructure. So all these things that Rich and Karen have said they're all important. And I think we have a lot more commonalities than we have differences. The biggest difference that I would bring to the NID board is a long-term vested interest in primarily ag water, but just water in this district. And it's a ratepayer perspective where and Karen spoke to the affordability of water, and that's really at my heart. My livelihood depends on this water, and my my children, if any of them decide to get into a similar enterprise, their livelihoods will depend on this water. And so I have a long-term vested interest in this agency being healthy and providing affordable, reliable, and plentiful water. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank each of you for coming tonight, and thank everybody here for showing up and for your decorum throughout this forum. And with that, we can now give our candidates a round of applause. Thank you, everybody.
That was great, Karen.
Yeah, it was good.
Are you
Yeah,
ill?
You don't want to get my cold. Yeah, no, it was very good.